Our feathers ended up looking fantastic. I'm happy with the way they turned out, and I hope this will encourage you to try it as well. Hey you guys, I'm so excited. Today I'm going to show you how I carved these feathers, and super easy project to do, perfect for beginners. Now, I am not a pro when it comes to carving. In fact, this is the only 2 feathers I have ever carved, and I'm going to show you the way I do it. If you are a pro carver and I'm doing it wrong, please be gentle. Do write in the comments what I should be doing to make it better. But this is a tutorial on how I created these wooden feathers. Like I said, super simple project. It doesn't take too long, and I will put all the items that I used in the description below, so you can give it a try as well. Super fun project. Let's get going. Now, for this project, I'll be using a piece of walnut. This is some scrap wood that had some blemishes and I couldn't use it for a box. So it's about this thick. Let's see the thickness. It's about 3/8 of an inch. And the first feather I made was a lot thinner. This is the first one I made. I made it from sapele. And you can see that's about just a little more than 1/4 inch. And I wanted to make it a little bit thicker because I kind of want to try to round over kind of these parts on the sides to give it a little bit more depth. I don't know if I will succeed or not, but I will try it, so that's why I chose a little bit thicker material. First step is to cut our feather. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. Let me point you down to my bench. So first of all, I'm going to put my plank with the blemish up so I can see exactly where the blemishes are. I don't want to use those parts. And I printed my feather on a piece of paper, and this I just purchased this design on Etsy. You can draw it your own. You can, get one from in the internet. So I got mine on Etsy, and this is not just ordinary printer paper. This is label paper. So that means this is used to print labels. So it's kind of like a sticker paper. It has a sticky side, and then let me show you if I can peel this a little bit to show you how it works. So this label paper, you can see it peels into 2. This is sticky, this is not. So that's why, like, every time I have scroll saw projects, I use label paper. Do not buy sticker paper because that one will jam your printer. But this one works really nice with any printer. So that's what I'm using, and I'll put the link to in the description below if you want to purchase this. Of course, you don't need the label paper. You can just trace your design. But I'm going to use this because that's my favorite way of working with the scroll saw. You also don't need the scroll saw. You can cut this whole thing on a bandsaw because there's no inside cuts. And the first thing I do, I kind of roughly cut around my feather just to make it easier to align on my wood, because I truly believe I can get 2 feathers out of this piece, so this way I can see where the blemishes are and avoid those areas. So before I glue this to my piece of wood, I'm going to cover the wood with blue tape, and this will allow me later on to remove the pattern from my wood and get 0 glue residue. So that's another thing I like to do when I work with pattern. So there you go. There's my blue tape on the wood. So now I can peel off this sticker and just stick it on the blue tape. Something like this. Now I'm going to take this to the chop saw and cut this part because I don't want to work with this giant board. It's going to make it so much easier if I work with a smaller board. Now the next step I like to do is to take my design to the bandsaw, and you can cut the whole thing on your bandsaw like I said, but I will be cutting mine on the scroll saw, and to make my life easier I will just cut kind of like the way the paper is, the outline on my bandsaw. and then I will take it to the scroll saw and cut out the feather. Might be an unnecessary step for you, but that's the way it makes my life easier, and that's the way I like to do it. So first I'll cut kind of like where the paper is, cut the outline on the bandsaw. Then I'm gonna go to the scroll saw, and at the scroll saw, the way I will do it, instead of going around here and then turning around, so you go with the scroll saw, you go in, then you get out from the blade, and then you go to the next one, go in, and that's the way I will cut this one. Even if you do it on the bandsaw, makes it so much easier and cleaner than trying to go in and turn around this way. Well, on the bandsaw you wouldn't even be able to do that, but on the scroll saw you could, but you get a cleaner cut if you just go in on both sides. It will make sense when you see me doing it. But first, cut the outline on the bandsaw. Well, here is our cut feather so far. As you can see, my scroll saw job is not the best, but that's okay. This is an organic shape. So once we take the pattern off, nobody knows what our feather was supposed to look like. And now, because I put that blue tape underneath, check this out, I can remove the pattern easy, and I'll have no glue or residue on my piece of wood. So just like that, super, super easy. Now, if you look at the first one I did, the feathers, they have this, I don't know what it's called, this spine. So I want to mark that, and I could just freehand it. Let me point you back to my bench. I could just freehand that spine because you'll go straight in the middle, but I don't like freehanding things, so I'm going to trace it. I cut another pattern here that is just on paper, printer paper, and I have a little bit of this carbon paper. I cut a strip. Let's see if this will work. Kind of put it in the middle there. Maybe something like that. And then if I loosely paste this kind of what it is, let's see if we can mark that. And I'm not gonna do both lines here. I'm just gonna make one line in the middle just to kind of have a rough idea where this is. And hopefully this will work. Yeah. So that's our spine. I don't know what it's called, so I'm just gonna go with that term for now. So now it's time to maybe round over these edges. I've never done this before on this kind of project, so I have no idea if this is going to ruin it or not, but I will try it, so I will do it. Now, to round over the edges, I'll be using this sander. I'm not sure what it's called, but it has squishy drums. These ones, you fill them with air with a bicycle pump. So I like it because it's so much easier to use and does a really good result when rounding over things. So that's what I'll be using. If I find links to all these products, I will put them in the description below. But this is what I'm using. So let's round over these halves like this. Super quiet. As you can see, the sander is on and we can still talk and hear each other. Now, as you saw, this is a very dusty job, so make sure you use a respirator. Every time I shape something by sanding or carving, I always use a respirator, a full-on mask. Now, because I'm filming and I have to keep taking it on and off, I'm just using one of these masks. They're actually really good, and this one fits my face really well, so there's no dust getting into my nose and mouth. But that's what I'll be using today. But normally, just so you know, I do use a respirator. So you see now the edges are thinner, the middle of it is thicker, then thinner again. So we got this kind of dome effect, which I think it's prettier and it looks better. Now it's time to carve the spine. Now, to carve the spine, you need a rotary tool. And by the way, this is the dust mask that I'm using. And to carve the spine, I'll be using a rotary tool. You can use a Dremel if you have a Dremel. I have a few different rotary tools here. And these are all gonna work great for this project. However, if I was to do a lot of power carving, I would have probably invested in Foreman rotary tool. Those are a lot more powerful, and they really get the job done so much faster and better. But this is the ones I have. I have the Marathon rotary tool, and I have this Strong 250. They are doing just great for this job, but they are underpowered, so for other jobs, they're not so great. But for this, it should work. Any rotary tool, like I said, just a Dremel. I have the Dremel 4000. That's a pretty good one. I'll put some of these links in the description below. But like I said, if you are serious about power carving and you do it a lot, I would invest in a Foreman. I will purchase one of those in the next few months. Now, when it comes to the bit that we'll be using to carve the spine, I like to use this dovetail shape bits. And I have this black one, which is a super rough one, and then I have the gold one, which is extra fine. The silver ones are the fine or medium coarse, if you will. So I'll start with the black one, and then I'll use the gold one just to kind of take away some of that roughness. And the way I'll be doing it is I'll run it like this alongside on this side of the spine. And then I'll do the other side as well. So the purpose here is to remove material from each side of the spine, so the spine will stick out kind of like I did it onto this one over here. So I'll be using this rotary tool over here, and let's go carve that out. Again, make sure you use a respirator. It is a very dusty job. Probably it's best to do it outdoors, but I'm gonna do mine inside today because it's like 90 degrees out there. So this is what we'll use. So now that we isolated the spine, I'm gonna take a different bit and kind of move this trench more this way. So kind of blend it in and smooth it into the rest of the feather. So that's what I'm gonna do. Let's see what I'm gonna use. Let me go look. So to smooth that transition, I'll be using this bit. And then after I'm doing that, I'm gonna use this one. This one is like a super fine tooth. So I'm just gonna go over this just to get it a little bit smoother, because this is kind of like a medium grit and this is like a fine grit. So this is what we have so far. So we smoothened that transition here. And now it's time to put a round over between every one, like on the edges of the cracks here. So what I'll be using for that, I'll be using this tiny ball burr. And what it does, when I will run it in between this, because of the shape of it, it's automatically going to round over both sides. So one side of this one and one side of this one. So I'm just going to run it like this on every single one, trying to round over as much as I can. So as you can see, running that through, it just kind of rounds over the edges. This one is not done yet. I still have to go through here, but you can see over here how it started to round over. So I'm gonna go ahead and use that between all the other cracks, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what we do next. So now we have a pretty rough feather. I'm going to use this bit next because it's more narrow and I can get in between these guys and kind of try to round over a little bit more and smooth things out. So that's what I'll be using next. So here is what our feather is looking so far, very rough. So now it's time to give it a good sanding. We will sand it again after we put the lines for the individual lines for the feathers. But for now, we'll do just a rough sanding, and I'll be using one of these 1/2-inch squishy sandpapers. And this one works perfect with my sander, but you can buy them cheaper. Serious Grit makes them too. This is a used one, and these are a lot cheaper, and you do not need to use a sander with it. You can just hand sand. It is a very small piece, so it won't take long to sand. But because I have a sander, I'll be using my sander and sand this, just roughly sand it, and then we'll come back and we'll see what's the next step. Well, I'm not sure what happened, but I broke a piece and I just super glued it, and I'm hoping that we won't see it much once we put those lines, but it did happen. It's right there, super glued. Let's move on. Next, before I put the lines here, I think I want to accentuate that spine just a little bit more, so I'm gonna make it a little more defined. I'll be using this inverted cone bit, so let's do that. That kind of puts just like a shadow line on each side of it, so it just makes it pop out a lot more. Now I'll be changing the bit, and I'll be using one of these bits. Oops. This is like almost like a blade, so that's what I'll be using to make the lines. Well, here is what we have so far, and we put all the lines. It's looking great. Now it's time to sand some more. So I'll be using the same medium grit to kind of sand all over. Then I will also take some 220 grit sandpaper. I'll take some 220 grit sandpaper. I'll fold it in half maybe and just go in between the ones that I can. Maybe in once it's gonna go in every one of them. So I wanted to kind of smooth out as much as I can out of this feather, but I wanna keep the lines and the shape. So gently sanding, and I'm gonna do that, and then I'll see you for the finish. I am finished sanding. I sanded as much as I could, and this is what it's looking like. As you can see, we have that rounded over. I think it just gives it a little bit more depth. You can see better maybe from this view. So I sanded as much as I could, and for the finish, I'll be using, what did I do? For the finish, I'm just going to put some of this shellac for now on. And I'll only put it on the top because I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with this feather yet. Maybe I wanna glue it on top of a project like a jewelry box or something. So I wanna leave the back unfinished just in case I decide to do something with it. But I'll put the finish just so you guys can see what it looks like, and I'll just put it on the top. Again, here is a close-up of what we have so far. So I'm going to put a coat of this shellac. I'm gonna go walk my dogs. We'll come back and we'll see what it looks like, the final product. All right, you guys, I put a coat of shellac, and here is what it's looking like. I think it looks fantastic. I am super happy with the way it turned out. And this is the one we did today. And then this is the one that I've done before, my first one. After we put those lines in it, you cannot tell which one of those pieces was broken. It kind of just all blends in. So this is how I made my feathers. I hope this was useful to you and you learned something new. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Skylar Ewing, and I'll see you in my next video.